All right, the property prequel, be in the know before you buy. Nathan Cross, how are you?
Matthew Srama, I'm well, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Good, mate. It's interesting times right now. We're obviously a few weeks post-Easter and, Anzac Day and whatnot, a long weekend after long weekend. What about the short weeks?
Oh, it's hard to get any sort of cohesion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all happening. So well and truly into the 2022 now, and it's funny this time of year, like it was a really good topic you brought up around post-Easter. Now we're moving into like quarter two effectively, which way you look at it, and the sentiment we wanted to chat around today and understanding what's going on the ground, I think is a big one because we're going to give a really key insight into the perspective of what some astute buyers are looking at right now and what's happening, what's the sentiment on the market right now, what are you sort of hearing on the ground post-Easter?
Yeah, I know I say it a lot, but interesting, and because I feel it is interesting. We've come out of 18 months, 2 years of a really, really hot market.
Flaming.
And you know that better than anyone. And we're still seeing some good prices achieved,
Definitely.
aren't we?
Yep.
But keen to get your thoughts, mate. But from what I'm seeing, number of people through opens well down.
Definitely.
Days on market going up. Prices still holding. But we're heading into this time now with the election a couple of weeks away. We're just off the back of Easter. There's a lot of chatter around interest rates.
Yep.
And not just one rate rise, but there's talk from certain economists, etc., around we may have 3 to 4 rate rises this year. I've got some sort of different thoughts on that, which is for another day. But what that does, it creates some uncertainty with the punter on the ground. The consumer confidence is potentially down. But as you and I both know, which we want to talk about today, with that comes opportunity. And I know yourself, mate, like you're personally looking at buying property at the moment or looking to pull the trigger now. So keen to get your thoughts around what you're seeing as well, because they're my thoughts. But the opportunities for buyers right now, I think it's a good time.
Mate, it's interesting, isn't it? Like sentiment's a funny one because I love sentiment across the board because I call it like barbecue chat, whatever's happening at the barbecue, that's what's going on world. Everyone loves talking property. So right now, interest rate, election, the interest rate one's a funny one, basis points likely to go up and whatnot. One thing I always say is, have you actually calculated what sort of monthly disposable income, how much it's going to change if it went 1, 2 basis point, whatever? Generally, it's not like it isn't actually that much from a household budgeting point of view, but I love how people get uncertain in times like this, and they might hold off and pull the trigger, especially with the election side of things. Like they're worried around what might happen or what may happen. What I find on the ground is the ones who are picking up good property at good prices are the ones who actually pick up the buying side now. So one thing I always say in markets like this, where it seems like it's easing up, leveling out, confidence might be down because of some of those external factors, is would you rather buy in competition or in isolation? You've heard that one before. Like, would you rather buy in competition or isolation? So I love that analogy and saying, because it's when consumer confidence is down, that's when you step it up, baby.
Yeah,
that's
100%. So what you're saying is, to break it down for the people that aren't that smart like me, is that do you want to go to an open home where the nightclub line's out the front driveway and around the corner, or do you want to go now when the numbers are right down, there's only 1 or 2 people through the open, you can actually have 10 or 15, 20 minutes with the agent one-on-one, get some really good intel from them, and actually start to get deep around the fact of taking some action, whereas you just can't do that in a booming hot market, like you said. So acting now in isolation, it's such a good time. You've got to be prepared, though, to go against consumer sentiment, go against the grain. But guess what? Most successful people in life are doing well. That's why they're the 5 or 10%, and the rest are the 95%.
Mate, it's exactly right. And sorry to bring up another quote, Crossy. I love them, but be fearful when others are greedy. Be greedy when others are fearful. And I think the top investors across the board, not just property, but all investors, use that analogy. And here's a really good time where I'm noticing confidence is going down. This is when you should be. If you're thinking around property, this is when you should be thinking, okay, there's potential not only to get a good asset in isolation, but potentially at a better price as well. Because what I'm finding on the ground in my business as a buyer's agent, obviously we're chatting to a lot of agents, is vendor expectations are still strong. They're still as they always are.
Yep.
But the buyers are becoming more educated in knowing what things are worth and things like that. So that gap between the buyer and the seller is quite large at the moment. But the sellers who have got motivation and that they need to sell, there's definitely bargains getting around, mate. And I can tell you that firsthand for sure.
Yeah, you're seeing it. And I love that quote you just said from the great man, Warren Buffett. It's one I've certainly tried to live my life by when I'm in a financial position to do things, because it is a good time to act. Interesting, I was having a chat with my wife last night around, and we make no secret of the fact that we both live at Palm Beach. Noticeable the amount of new listings coming on in that Palm Beach area, notoriously been a very sort of tightly held market. And even further to your point, some of the dialogue, or rather some of the terminology on the realestate.com websites from some of the agents around highly motivated seller ready to meet the market. I've noticed that headline about 3 times in different areas on the Southern Gold Coast, where, you rewind 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months ago, that's completely opposite sort of thinking to where we've just come out of. What are we now? We're in sort of, we're just post-Easter. We're not talking a year or so ago. We're only talking a few weeks back. So it's interesting the shift that external factors, like you said, can have with the election and whatever. So interesting to see where it's headed, but in all, such a great time to take some action.
Oh, it definitely is. And you're so right. I guess a key takeaway for buyers is notice that the shift in the dialogue of the agents is changing. So what I mean by that is I'm hearing different things like more motivated sellers. They'll even put it in the headlines. It's a motivated seller. They're noticing the shift. And sometimes the days on market is creeping up now. One key thing I always look for, and a big tip for buyers, is agents generally have a 90-day agreement on a property. If that gap's big that I said around buy expectation, vendor expectation, and the agent hasn't been able to close that gap at day 80, and there is motivation from the seller, I'm telling you what, great time to negotiate, because the seller needs to get rid of it, and it's a stressful time. Having anything sitting on the market for over 2 months is stressful. Agent doesn't want to lose the listing because they got a 90-day agreement. There's other agents chomping at the bit. So
agents work to 80 days for free.
Exactly
waiting
right.
for payday. You've got 10 days to go. They're trying to put a deal together.
100%. So this is a huge tip for buyers.
Huge tip. And again, mate, unbiased, but for you and your business, this is where the value of a buyer's agent is so great, because you understand all those things and you've actually got relationships with agents, so you know where potentially the bottom line could be for a seller, as opposed to, say, a punter going in thinking that, well, look, it's advertised at $8.95. It was, it was $9.25. If I can get it for $8.75, that's a good deal. But you might know the intel that, look, their sellers at $800.
Yeah,
these people, because guess what? They paid $500,000 2 years ago, and they're in the money anyway.
Exactly. It's a good point, Crossy. And a tip I always say as well is, just because something's sat on the market a long time doesn't mean something's wrong with it. That's generally consumer thinks that. Yep. So I actually don't mind. I'll always save a property. I know it's the vendor expectation's too high at the moment. It's overpriced, in my opinion. I'm just going to keep an eye on it. And if they haven't met the market, and I know there's motivation behind it because of some intel and asking the right questions, I'll tell you what, there's time to pounce on some deals, especially in this market where you're buying in isolation rather than competition. So keep an eye on campaigns. One tip is, like, save the property in your real estate search. Keep an eye on it. Every fortnight, check in with the agent. As I said, the more days the agent holds it, the more nervous they get around meeting that 90-day expiry, is more opportunity for you to buy even less competition, because the listing's now on page 4 or 5, and it's lost a lot of traction because the vendor had the expectation too high, and now they've lost a lot of traction, and now you can potentially get something even below market value. Again, if you're asking the right question, understand motivation.
Absolutely. Well, to illustrate that point further, and we won't go deep into your personal situation, but you've actually just done that. You've just transacted on a property below market value. And again, for the listeners and viewers, this is to illustrate the fact that we practice what we preach. That's only just gone down the last week or two, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, mate, as I said, it's not to be excited. I love property, mate, but I love it when the market cools, because that's when you strap in, baby. Because I tell you what, I'd rather be making astute purchases, making calculated decisions when I've got a bit of time up my sleeve and understanding motivations out there from sellers with less competition, when everyone's sort of, cooling the jets a bit.
Yeah.
That's when you want to buy a good property, you pick it up a bit. So it's really cool to see the market right now doing what it is. As I said, I purchased one personally again, and it's a good time to buy, and you're seeing it as well in your space in the commentary. It's just around highlighting to people out there, any buyers looking across the board, that don't always follow the crowd, don't always listen to the noise that things are going south or negative. Anything you read in the headlines is set to boost ratings or boost advertising space and all those sorts of things. So generally what I'm saying is get educated, get on the ground, chat to the agents and professionals and see what's happening actually on the market. And if you're hearing, again, if you want to buy in competition, you buy in super hot markets. If you want to buy in isolation, you go when the confidence is down. So I feel this next period or quarter, if we want to call it, is strap in and get some things sorted.
Couldn't agree more. Now's the time. And if we break it all down and simplify it again and look at it from, a macro level, rents on the Gold Coast have never been higher. Population growth is through the roof. Critical housing shortage. Half these projects that are being mooted on the Gold Coast won't materialise due to building costs and blowouts. We've got this issue with supply and demand, which is in favour of property owners. So there might be some, consumer sentiment down. There could be some negative chatter around a few different things. But guess what? Fundamentally, things are still looking extremely positive here on the Gold Coast.
Oh, 100%. And that's the exciting thing, isn't it? At the end of the day, you've got to look at things from a fundamental point of view rather than a sentiment and headlines point of view. So to the astute buyers out there, they understand this, but hopefully this has given a little insight into the mindset of the way some buyers think and how others don't. So if you're at the barbecue chat this weekend, just be the different one and say, I'm actually ramping up. This is the time, and here's why.
Bring the chicken. Don't bring the snags.
That's it. Cross in. Lastly, mate, what's one little key takeaway, I guess, to add some value to buyers this week?
Yeah, look, I reckon start going to a few open homes.
Good chat.
If you are genuinely interested in looking to buy, if you're in a position to buy now, start going to some open homes. Start witnessing some of the things that you and I have spoken about today. Build confidence off the back of that. And then, as we always say, put the white noise to the side and take some action. What are your thoughts?
Mate, my biggest tip, I reckon, is around understanding the value of a property. I think that's a good one in this market, is just getting an idea, get out there, try and know what you're looking for, 3-bed, 4-bath, whatever. Understand what it's worth. Go out there. And if you feel it's overpriced, don't rule it out. Save it. Keep an eye on it. And I'm telling you, there's deals out there if you stay persistent. Obviously, you've got to do your due diligence, tick all the boxes, make sure it's a good asset, first of all. But just because it's overpriced at the start of the campaign doesn't mean you still can't pick up a bargain. That's probably my biggest tip is buy with confidence and keep an eye on things as well, because I'm seeing that happen a lot.
Track those properties online.
Track them, yeah. Yep. Keep track of it, and you'll notice some really good trends out there at the moment. But at the end of the day, you got to understand there's a story behind every dwelling crosser. You got to understand that, the motivation, and try to create that win-win. And as I say one last time, you'd rather be buying in isolation than in a competition, right?
Love it. Good way to finish, mate.
That's it, mate. Have a good week, eh?
You too. See you, buddy.